Yo, welcome in. We are live What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Oh, amazing!
Oh, it's great to
Live
be
for the
here.
first time ever.
Oh, baby.
Wow.
The Knicks pulled it off.
Knicks pulled it off.
92-84. We're hyped.
I am.
So we're so hyped.
extremely
We got a new style show.
Yeah, there you go.
It just happened. I don't know how.
Honestly, I didn't think they had it in them to finish out that game, but
For real?
not really.
yeah.
It wasn't looking that good. You know, like
Yo.
the momentum swing, I wasn't feeling
It was a rough start,
Yeah.
especially with the 3 points.
I'll put it this way. I knew since we were kicking off a live show, I knew they were going to get the dub. I had full confidence, and they pulled it off.
Yeah,
You were
T,
stoic.
we may need to check your internet connection. Are you frozen? Is it just on me?
No, that's just
He's
my
just
face.
speechless,
Okay,
bro.
he's speechless.
That's how confident you were. You didn't move.
That's
a
how
muscle.
excited I am. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I
So we're off to a
liked
great start.
IQ a lot. I liked
he
how
was
he
big
put
time,
the
clutch.
game on his back
Yeah,
and pulled it off down the stretch. Loved seeing that.
So what did you guys think from start to finish? How did we kick off?
Terrible to start. The New York Knicks, the Knicks right now are playing this brand of basketball that's just, it's confusing because they play with our emotions, and when we see them play well, it's like, wow, this could be a top 4 team in the East. Then when they play bad, it's like, are they capable of making the playoffs? And like this level of confusion is extremely uncomfortable to sit with, but that's what the MadGood Knicks show is here to digest, right?
Well, very true.
Couldn't
Very
say it more
true.
beautiful.
Jay, what do you think?
I mean, like I said, it was a rough start, but it was amazing just seeing the chemistry that we have and bringing it all together. OB only had, for example, 4 points, but goddamn, you need to see him more out there. You need to see Randall just relax a little bit more. And I don't mean in terms of his effort. I mean more so literally relax on the bench because we have someone that can fucking play.
well, Mitch is out, so we may see more of Obi filling in. I thought unsung hero. I mean, let's talk about Taj really quickly. He was the unsung
Please.
hero in my
Please.
opinion. His defense, his energy, everything that he brings night in and night out. I mean, he
Preach.
doesn't take a single play off, and I thought he was doing a great job of guarding the bigs on the perimeter.
Mhm.
He did a great job there. He was giving the Knicks second chance baskets. We don't talk about Taj enough because he plays sparingly, but when he does, he comes up big.
It's that veteran presence, bro.
Yeah, definitely, bro. Like, you know what? I was talking to Pete before. I was like, D Rose and Taj Gibson are kind of their own island. You know what I'm saying? They're their own independent player. Like, it doesn't really. They're in kind of like mutually exclusive for how well the team does. Like, D Rose will always put in his game. Like, Taj Gibson, when he comes in, he'll always do his thing. The only thing about it is like the inconsistency, right? So, I mean, yeah, Taj did come out tonight to play the game, but it would be great to see that kind of night in and night out, right? That's where we want that veteran presence. But, having it this sparingly, I feel like it might, in the long run, and especially throughout the playoffs, if we're thinking long term, it might not be enough. You know what I mean?
I think it's awesome to see Taj and Derek. It's cool to see like Thibodeau's trust process in his players. When we think about the rotation, like who's getting the most heat right now for the New York Knicks woes? And judging by TK's speechless face there,
I'm stuck on
it's New York's own
believe it.
Kemba Walker, and then it's the best all around New York Knick, and that's Julius Randle. But when you look at the trust of Thibodeau, Kemba isn't playing down the stretch. Julius Randle is.
Yeah.
You got Derrick Rose in there in place of
Yep.
Kemba. You got Alec Burks in there. You got RJ Barrett. You got IQ, and then you have Taj Gibson.
Yes.
Over obviously, what happened to Mitchell. I didn't read the report, but he's
Sore
injured.
ankle. Yeah, sore ankle.
ankle.
He had to leave a little early.
So with Mitch, hopefully it's nothing long term, but Taj backing that up, Tibbs has no issue with that whatsoever, and clearly it's on full display for the Knicks as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, our two big men have been injury prone thus far this year, and it's a little worrisome. I mean, Taj is going to definitely provide for us, at points during the season, but in terms of longevity, it's kind of interesting to see how there's like an inverse relationship between the starters and the bench, right? It never seems to kind of coexist. They both seem to be excelling in their own ways. And it's great to see towards the end of tonight's game, right? Both, Randall providing down the stretch, IQ providing down the stretch, Taj putting up the boards, defending, right? Obi getting his shots in. So it seems like it was very spread out and it was even. And that's where we seen that team ball. I think, what we saw in the beginning of the season, that perimeter D on a string, right? Where they all moved in unison, and same thing on the offensive end. Whenever we lose, I think we miss out on that. And then whenever we win, you see a spark in that, right? Whether it's starters or bench. So, that would be great to kind of just see continuing forward.
Yeah, I just want to see a lot of defense moving forward.
Yeah.
I feel like we know what our offense is capable of, but our freaking defense has to be incredibly consistent moving forward.
Facts.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad. I think what's interesting about tonight that with Mitch going out with the sore ankle and Nerlens Noel being out already with the knee, it almost forced Tibbs' hand to try some interesting rotations. I think there was some point in there where Obi Toppin was in with Julius Randle, which doesn't really happen that often.
Agreed.
And I think you saw some interesting results out of that. I think the disparity between the bench and the starters in terms of some of their chemistry and some of their offensive cohesiveness and their continuity, as Clyde likes to say. Essentially, there's been a little disparity there. I think everyone's noticed that. So I don't know if the answer is to mix up the rotations more. I know our starters play the most minutes out of any starting lineup in the NBA.
Yeah.
Not even any lineup, period, which is kind of crazy. And I don't know if that means mixing some of those players in, because I think we have a lot of scorers that you could consider traditionally inconsistent scorers. Like Kemba Walker can give you 25, 30 in a night, but he can't give you that every night. He's not like a reliable scorer like a Kevin Durant or a James Harden where you're getting a consistent amount.
He's been more efficient this season, though.
Definitely. I'd put Evan Fournier in that category as well. And even Julius Randle at this point, he has kind of his off nights. And as Steph was saying before, Derrick Rose, the Taj Gibsons, they're the kind of more reliable. You know what you're going to get, especially with Derrick Rose. I mean, I want to give that guy a ton of credit. Where would we be without Derrick Rose? Jesus Christ.
I mean, if judging by jersey sales, when the Knicks City Edition jerseys dropped this morning, Derrick Rose was like the impossible one to find. So if you're at the Garden, definitely pick up one of those.
Of course.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
Yo, real quick, guys. I love you all. It's been a while. We haven't done this. It's long overdue. We haven't, put out an episode in quite some time. Mm-hmm. But I need y'all to pick the energy up, man. We just got this dub. It's 92-84. Y'all talking like we just came from a funeral and shit. Like
that's the problem.
Look. My thing is more than anything else, it's a long season. You know what I mean? You can't get too high, you can't get too low. Trust me, it's not like it's a lack thereof. It's just we got to see consistency from this team. It's been a little bit of a skid. We're still seeing even certain players not yet play that much in the season. I'm personally disappointed in that. I want to see Tibbs change that. I need to see him actually change that.
It's early. It's
early. Fuck, it's enough to see. Look, what 12, 10, 11 game sample already, 12 game sample. You can begin to change some things up and actually, even in garbage minute. I think he's
gonna have to. You're gonna have to, because tonight, during the game, it was bittersweet or sweet bitter. Because essentially the whole game I was taking notes on the game, and it was all pretty much negative stuff or stuff that I saw that the Knicks were doing incorrectly. Yeah, and then they kind of close out the game and they won the game. So I was like, we won the game, but I don't want to dismiss all the stuff that I'm seeing, because I feel like that's why we're struggling throughout the season. But yeah, we can get into those.
Look, it was nice to see RJ hit a few threes, but it's one of those things that as well, it's his blessing and curse this season, it seems like. He hit him in pivotal times for us. We needed it, but goddamn.
He got the dagger. And by the way, I just turned down my gain because TK said something about energy. So here we go. All right. Yes, the New York Knicks won. Yes, we're 8-6 right now. But are we thrilled that we just beat the Pacers? I do not like the fact that, look, be happy. I'm not out there bing-bonging in the streets about this one, though. No, let's be happy about this. We're 8-6. We avoided being 500. But this brand of basketball is going to leave us at 500 fighting for an 8 seed by the end of the season.
That's true.
So that's why I'm not over the hill. I'm not thrilled about this victory. I love how we closed it out. I love that IQ and RJ were the names behind the closeout, which is amazing to see. And the rotation, though, it's giving me such anxiety, because I don't want to necessarily say Kemba Walker should be coming off the bench because you don't want to mess with what the bench has already created.
Yeah, of
but
course.
Derrick Rose is playing like he can add more value to this team right now. I don't want to bench someone like Fournier because he's not going to offer a lot of benefit coming off the bench. But when you look at this rotation of Derrick Rose, of Quickly, when you sprinkle Burks in there or RJ, Obi, his role's on the bench. I don't think he's going to start just because he brings that type of energy. Then you have someone like Randall and then Taj at center. You might want to look at that rotation to potentially start. And then you really need to weigh the risk of at what cost are you doing this? Do you want to sacrifice the best part of your team, which is the bench?
Right. I think you make valid points, man. And the tough part about it is if Fournier isn't going to be a consistent shooter, I mean, we paid big money for this guy. So if he isn't going to be a knockdown shooter, what value is he bringing to this team? He's a terrible on-ball defender. He's an average team defender. But other than that, man, he's been a no-show for majority of the season. What are you going to do with a guy like him?
Not a lot, especially if he's not showing up on defense. Like this is what 14 games into the season. It's a young season right now. I think the Knicks still have time. So yeah, I'm not excited about this because I don't know what direction the Knicks are going to end up going in. And I hate to put it this way because it's like my old frustrated Knicks fanhood coming out. But like if half these players are traded by a deadline, it's going to suck. I'm not going to be shocked. But I hope that that's not the route that the New York Knicks go down.
No,
so I
if
think
they go that route, we're in trouble.
No, we're in big trouble. I don't think that's what I want to be clear. I don't think that that's the route that we're going down right now. But there's some serious soul searching, and you got to start bringing up names like Grimes. You got to start bringing up names like McBride, and think about what else to do with this rotation. Because is it consistency? Is it these wholesale changes? That's avoiding real chemistry development. I'm just not sure yet.
Yeah,
I think the one rookie that we have seen though, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see him for the next two home games, is going to be a lot of Sims. Barring whatever happens with Mitchell Robinson and Noel. He's missed 3 straight games, but Sims is seeing his fair share of action, more so than the other 2 rookies. Rightfully so. He's a big body. Yeah.
I like that idea, but you got to keep your starters happy too. I mean, if we start kind of putting in, those players, which I think at the start of season we should have seen a little more, just so they're kind of used to that rotation at this point. Mm-hmm. But I feel like at this time, like you have to sacrifice, right? If you're giving those guys more minutes, then you're taking away minutes from other guys, and what will that do potentially for the morale, right? If they see that, all right, well, we've lost 3 home games, right, out of the last 4, and so now I'm switching minutes already at this point of the season. It might be a little too abrupt. I could see Tibbs still kind of sticking with these rotations and just trying to give these guys confidence because we have seen ups and downs. But, I think it's too soon to kind of like punish dudes and then, put another rotation in just yet.
So how much longer are you giving these guys?
I mean, I don't know. It's like I would probably say within 20 to 25 games, like even Tibbs said, right? Like,
well, that's what Tibbs said.
But at this point, it's like 20 games doesn't mean anything. 30 games, 40 games, like chemistry it's there, it's not, right? Or at least you see flashes of it more often, right? Or some consistency in it. So I don't know.
So
we'll see.
How do you is it live and die by the 3 here? Where how do you explain? And I love seeing this, but the New York Knicks show up for these big games, but they're not showing up for the business as usual games of just like, all right, this is an equal or lesser team. We just got to take care of business right now. They're not showing up, but they happen to show up. Boston, Bucks, Sixers. They're showing up for these games. I love it, but you got to take care of what you are expected to take care of as well.
Well, speaking of taking care of business, on Wednesday we got the Magic, and we owe them one. We certainly owe them one. They surprised us, or what it seemed like they surprised us last game back in Orlando. Or was that in our home floor?
No, it was on our home floor.
Our home floor,
they embarrassed us after we embarrassed them.
Yeah, so we owe them one. So that's part of taking.
Everybody
care of
shows up for MSG though.
Yeah, they do, but not with this skill set. If I got Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose and Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, I don't care who is on the Magic at this point. Cole Anthony, give me a break.
He's stepping up.
but not
Yeah,
with this defense,
he's not
bro.
bad, but like, come on, we got Derrick Rose and we got Kemba Walker. I can neutralize
Yeah,
Cole
but
Anthony.
Fresh
But that's no
legs.
defense.
For me, it has to be like our pick and roll has to be working, which it was at some points tonight with Julius Randle. Again, we need to see a few more minutes for Obi just to continue to feel more comfortable out there. It's great to see him going up there, just even getting the energy up in the Garden, especially with those dunks. I know,
man.
It's another jersey. That's another jersey that sold out fast this morning.
God damn it!
City edition jersey.
Speaking of, Julius Randle still works way too hard for a lot of his buckets. And I noticed in some situations he's got it down low and he dribbles it out to kind of start his isolation move. So that concerns me because it's not necessarily a knock on Julius Randle, but a knock on the ball movement when we're not trying to get open threes. All right. So we get a lot of good looks from three. And even if we go 0 from 7, a lot of those were good looks. But when they're not going down, I don't really see us making a lot of interior plays. Another thing I wrote down here is that Mitch was awesome defensively tonight, but in a lot of pick and roll situations, he doesn't really set himself up for a pass. And he kind of does this in between where the ball dribbler doesn't really have a lot of passing options or drive option. What I'm saying, he's got to tighten that up. So as far as like improving the rotations, you might be right. I think maybe some trades are going to be necessary to fix us defensively. I don't know how you build defensive chemistry with the current starting lineup. I think the guards aren't like natural defenders, so a lot of times we give up a lot of perimeter looks, but beyond that, we got guys driving, and then it sort of breaks down the interior defense as well. And then because of that, we're not getting any fast breaks. Have you guys noticed we're not getting any fast breaks?
Yeah, it's
We talk about fast breaks.
Yeah. And our losses,
and by the way, I want to shout out a couple of the comments right now. Juan Sinclair, they staggered the lineup as well. I think that was in comment of kind of the rotations that Tibbs was making. One thing I did like about the rotation is he is doing a bit more of the RJ Randall stay in the rotation and he'll sub 3 other guys out. Or if Mitchell was healthy, Mitch would also stay in there. I like that a lot more versus some of the wholesale changes that he's been making because you got to develop some of this chemistry. And I think after 25 games, we're probably going to know where this team's headed in terms of chemistry. So probably have another like 10 or so games versus before we start jumping to conclusions. And by the way, I want to let me just pull up the stat sheet here so everyone could see kind of what we're looking at. I have no idea how this works right now, but let's
to Juan's point, like we were saying earlier, I think a lot of the different rotations were as a result of just accidental. But Tibbs got to
here we go.
Make it happen.
Yeah. So look, one thing that stands out to me, you could look at the stats, you could look at all of the and you could keep the stat sheet up there. You can look at the team stats, all that. The plus minus is a sore thumb right now. Are you kidding me? Every single starter is in plus minus, and then every single bench player is in positive. Like this is playing disgusting into the narrative that all the media and headlines have been talking about over the last couple of days, which is the New York Knicks have the worst, historically bad plus minus offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, whatever it might be, but like. Defensive. Here we go. Defensive. Thank you. Exhibit A right here.
I mean, the eye test tells me my eye test agrees with this, but I didn't know like the numbers were this.
Yeah, the numbers are pitiful, bro. All-time status. Yo, so quick question with everything you got going on here. We see the plus minus. This is a trend now. This isn't just like 1 or 2 games. This has been a trend throughout. What are you guys seeing from the starters? Like, what's not working well for them?
Can I?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I? Okay, so
go ahead.
I think one glaring thing here. You have 2 scorers that need the ball to be dominant. That need to be ball dominant in order to score and add value. That's Julius Randle and Kemba Walker.
Yep.
They need that. When you have someone like Derrick Rose on the court who could be that high volume scorer, like we saw it in the playoffs, we saw a couple flashes in a couple games. But he is willing to distribute first and foremost. Now, I'm not calling Kemba selfish by any stretch. His game is just predicated on making sure that he could dribble, drive, get to the basket, draw some fouls. That's his game. And until we could fix that, the rest of this is not going to work out too well. There's a reason I think that we're seeing flashes of really good chemistry on the offensive front between Randall and Bear, between Randall and Fournier, because these guys don't, the other two guys, Randall and RJ and Fournier, don't need the ball in their hand to be effective scorers all the time. Kemba Walker does. So I'll pause there. Let me know what you guys think.
Yo, I just want to mention really quick, because you brought up a valid point here, but at the same time, what I did see working is something that they don't go to often enough, in my opinion, and that would be Julius Randle and Fournier. They have a really good two-man game that they started developing early on, and whether it was the dribble handoff from Julius Randle or even the delayed pick and roll action, which I love delayed pick and roll action. The unfortunate part about it is Fournier is just not hitting his shots right now. You know, like I feel like they can go to that more.
But they're going to start hitting soon. They're going to start hitting
Hopefully.
soon. Again,
that's the live and die thing.
It's a long season.
Right.
And exactly. And you have someone like Barkley saying, yo, you cannot win a championship this way. It's been done before.
They're not the Golden State Warriors, man. Come on.
Really.
And even the Warriors have the number one ranked defense.
The Knicks, not really. The Knicks are trying to be the Houston Rockets right now, and they've never won a championship.
Chuck it up so much.
But you actually have to be like the
James
Warriors, which is essentially like not everyone's taking threes. There's a certain subset of players, excuse me, that are going to be taking those threes.
Yeah.
And then we're going to play team ball and move the ball around all the time and get all the easy twos we can whenever we can. We're going to run. We're going to play crazy team defense. That's a completely different story. I think right now the Knicks are playing more like Daryl Morey's Rockets as opposed to the Warriors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far as if we're talking about being 3-point happy, both teams put up a lot of shots, but one does it with the backing of all the other fundamentals of basketball, I think. So, and then the Knicks have to find that. They got to find a way to score when the three is not dropping, and it can't just be the bench. Like the starters need to figure that out, and that means more interior play. But I got to think about how they would possibly do that.
Okay, so are we seeing any positives from the starters at all?
I'm seeing positives more from like a seasonal standpoint. I mean, Randall's doing his thing. Like, I have a few things to say about Randall. One is that, like, he's been a most improved player. He's been providing for us. He's been our number one guy. So, hats off to Randall. Obviously this season, a lot to say that's positive around him. But one thing is that I'm seeing the similar mistakes that got him in trouble during the playoffs, right? Like my bro said before, he's getting into difficult shots. His step backs, his threes, they seem well grounded and balanced, but a lot of them do seem rushed and kind of contested, right? And that's what we saw ended up happening in the playoffs, right? A lot of times the teams focused on him since he was our go-to guy. And then when you put all your energy in that, right, it's going to be a lot easier to kind of put a block on a team, right? But what I have been seeing from Randall lately, even though he hasn't been producing offensively, he's been looking a lot for the perimeter guys. So he would take the ball, right, and instead of kind of rushing it and turning it over down in the paint, which he has had a habit of this year of doing, he's been kind of going to elbow extended on a three-point line, looking for IQ, looking for D Rose, looking for Kemba to kind of pass it off, and then he would go down into the block and raise his hand for the ball, right? So even though he hasn't been producing offensively, he's been kind of changing his habits around, so that's a positive thing to see on that end.
We have a comment that somebody agrees with you about Randall.
Nice.
And there's another thing about Randall, and you touched on it, but when he attacks the basket down low, he makes good things happen. I would love to see him work his game going forward inside out, as opposed to where he's at now, where he's relying on I'm just messing this whole thing
up. Three ball.
Yeah, he's relying on the three ball, and he's going outside in, and it's not working for him, at least to start most games. And I think he's in his head right now, unfortunately. Same with RJ. Both of them are overthinking the game. Randall more so like, how can I get more guys involved? How can I, get mine in the flow of the game, but it's not really translating to that just yet.
I mean, you also saw, like, I think this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that the MSG crowd has booed this season, specifically Randall. And that happened. I think it was the third quarter when the Pacers were in the midst of their 10-0 run. Randall turned the ball over, but he was either winded, which is hard to believe just because of the amazing physical shape he's in, or there was just a bit of frustration that translated into a little bit of lack of effort. And I never want to call that out on a guy like Julius Randle, but when you look back at that third quarter and many other third quarters, and Julius Randle's supposed to be the anchor, you can't have some of these turnovers. And we've seen it from him a couple times this year already. We're down the stretch. He's not the most responsible one with the ball. And I'm not sure if we want to always trust him in that position. So this is the first time that I think that the Knicks fans are finally, like, the Julius Randle honeymoon in New York might be teetering just a little bit. And now
I don't
he's got to
think
be
that's fair.
I disagree.
consistent.
I completely disagree, brother. Look, for
Yeah,
me,
I'm with you.
over a 5-game stretch, Randall is the only one that, like, again, continued with the consistency. You're talking most improved player. You're talking damn near MVP in our city.
I'm not disagreeing with
Hold
any of that, though.
on. Julius Randle again. I didn't prove my point even just yet. I'm still warming up. Julius Randle, 21.6 points per game, 42% field goal, right? Next person down, RJ Barrett, 10.4 points. Give me Evan Fournier, Parisian Assassin, goddamn 8.2 points. Kemba Walker, 9 points per game. Mitchell Robinson, 6. Julius, consistency. Thank you. Let's give this man
I want to be crystal clear here. I'm not doubting for a second that everything that Julius Randle has delivered to the Knicks is, like, recanted or anything like that. When I say the honeymoon phase is over, I specifically mean those expectations are rising significantly now for Julius Randle, where he can't constantly have those late third, fourth quarter turnovers that then end up kind of in turn causing some sort of shift in momentum. God forbid the game, things like that. I think
also the amount of minutes that he is playing, and that is more of a coaching thing, not so much a player. I mean, obviously he controls as much as he can, but his coach needs to take him out more.
So we got a Tibbs issue on our hand. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, we have always seen this consistency with Tibbs playing his players too much, especially his starters. Look, if you just reduce Julius Randle, I saw this fun stat. If you just reduce him literally by 4 minutes a game, that saves him by the end of season right now up to 6 games in total across the season.
I think that's going to come in time. Once Obi Toppin can start adding consistently that 10, 11, 12 points a game, that might be enough to give Julius Randle more of a break. But until then, there's absolutely no one at that forward position that you could really trust to give you any kind of volume on the scoring front.
What was your second point?
What was my second point? My only
you lost your train of thought.
my only point was when I say that the honeymoon phase for Julius Randle is slowly running out in New York, I'm not saying that New Yorkers want to run him out. He's been amazing for us. But I think when you think about the honeymoon phase, again, the expectations go from here to there. And if you're not performing there constantly, then all of a sudden you're going to be in a position where you might get booed a lot more often at MSG, because that's the type of crowd we are.
And that's the type of
Straight
culture we need to change.
Oh, cut that out. That culture is not changing. Bing bong.
Just say it. Coming from New Yorkers themselves.
Aren't you from Florida?
Man, I don't know what you're talking about, Willis.
Do you get the camera working, bro?
Yeah, man. We're having like technical difficulties all around over here, but I'm making it work, baby. You know how I do.
For yourself. Oh, good.
No. As in we, I mean me. But OB played 11 minutes today, and I want to kind of key in back on what Far said. Far mentioned like when OB would get around to the 10, 12 points a night, that's when the minutes will start going up. I think he's much more effective than that, regardless of the points. His activity level, I mean, just things that he brings to the table. He deserves more minutes off of that alone.
Yes.
There was a stat tonight that I think Mike Breen, legendary Mike Breen, brought up that OB is 4th in pace of play or play of pace of play this season or something roughly around that. Don't quote me, but I think he's a game changer when he comes in. everything changes from him to Rose to Quickly
Agreed.
to Burks. I think
Agreed.
Gibson, everything just changes, So let's talk about the bench players really quick. Like, what do we see that we like and dislike from there? And would you change anything, if anything?
Anything. If anything.
Everything. No, I'll say one real quick point on Toppin, though. My point on his increase in minutes, I agree. He brings so much to the table, and I think those minutes should increase. I'm talking about having him sub in specifically for Julius Randle to make up for that offensive loss when Julius Randle's sitting on the bench. That's something I think that the Knicks need to figure out, because Obi Toppin isn't quite there yet on specifically the offensive side. I love seeing both he and Randle on the court together, though.
But you just never know what you're going to get out of him, especially how exciting he can be. He's a highlight reel. Come on, that alone just will spark the team.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on.
You think if the starters weren't struggling as much, that they'd actually get out of the game sooner? Because I don't know, maybe like Tibbs is giving them more time to figure it out. Whereas if they could get a 12-point lead, maybe you'd see some guys come in sooner.
Tibbs is a savage.
I don't know.
I feel like he's stuck in his ways in terms of minutes played. He's stuck in his ways.
Yeah, but it's just right now offensively with Randle within the offense, I'm seeing a lot of those like early issues. So the bench doesn't have that. TK to since you asked about the bench doesn't have those issues, because to Far's point, they're not really deferring specifically to one guy. I think they all play within the flow of the offense, which is what makes the bench seem like they have more pep in their step, more energy. I feel like the starters are trying to do be too contrived in terms of setting up plays. Something like again, Randle works way too hard to get baskets, and even when he gets the ball, it's an ISO situation. It's not like a backdoor screen where he's got an open dunk. You see that rarely. And I think, Far, to your point about the MSG crowd booing him, I think having seen what happened in the playoffs, I think you're seeing shades of that in the games where he's struggling. And I think that's where the fear comes in. It's like, all right, if this is happening now, then in the playoffs, we don't want to see a repeat of it, which is not fair, because I don't think it's entirely Julius Randle's fault. I think it's the other guys, or currently the structure of the offense doesn't allow him to get easy baskets. But again, the bench doesn't seem to have that problem. And so I don't know how to instill that benchness into the starters. That chemistry.
It's also an elite bench.
It really is, which is surprising.
Player for player, I mentioned this in a previous episode. Player for player, you could replace any one of these guys outside of Obi and Randle and not miss a beat on whatever the heck the starters are trying to accomplish right now.
Whatever the heck they're trying to do.
If y'all remember the beginning of the season, we said how the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? Like the team, each individual part was great. And like what Pete said, tonight we won, but most of the game I wasn't that satisfied. And we had RJ come through it, IQ come through. We had, as I mentioned, D Rose, Taj Gibson. So those dudes kind of pulled it through. But the last 4 games, I'm not really satisfied with the way we've been playing. And also defensively, not just perimeter, bro, but we played Swiss cheese D crazy, man. We're letting guys just come into the paint, floaters all day, getting fouls, right? Tonight's a bonus. Those are big holes, man. You know what I mean? We need some big dudes to be able to step up and not let those big guys dominate us down low.
Our big guys are also hurt.
Yeah, I know. But even when he was in the game, right? Like Mitch, I'd love to see a little more of him creating his own shot. He's fantastic. He's fantastic on a pick and roll. He's fantastic moving without the ball. His IQ, Obi's IQ, all their IQs are really impressing me. I underestimated them, to be honest, but I still want to see. I still want to see them be able to create their own shot and not just rely on a system. Because if the system potentially has a crack in it, like the last few games we've seen, then the whole team breaks up, and it's weird. The bench does well, the starters don't. That just doesn't make sense. But yeah, a little creating their own shot would be nice to kind of add.
Also, none of this matters if the threes are going down.
Of course, early in the season.
Live and die by the three, because these defensive issues existed when we were 5-1. Yeah. We were hitting threes at this unbelievable pace.
And what happens if we don't make them all?
We're still fourth in the league in percentage.
Yeah. We are, which is freaking
Crazy.
Insane. Like how after what I've seen. But the thing with Mitch, that's something we've been waiting on for several years now for him to get his own basket. But I also think guys need to do a better job of setting up the bigs. Especially they get Obi involved, but especially Mitch, man. He works too hard on both ends.
Mhm.
Defensively, he's all over the place. He was blocking shots. I think he had like 3 in the first half or whatever.
Yep.
He had a couple deflections and a steal. I think guys need to set him up, dribble drive, dribble penetration. Where is that? Give him a nice little lob. Remember when we used to have the lobs with him? What happened to those?
Yeah, a big part I think last year was IQ lobbing the ball up to him. But now again, like I mentioned my point on Kemba. Again, it's not that Kemba's a selfish player, but just it's in his nature not to be as kind of a distributor first.
Mm-hmm.
And Rose is leaning that way. IQ did that since last year. So you're not seeing a whole lot of what we could really get out of Mitchell Robinson in that first through the starters. I want to touch on Alec Burks real quick, just because I mean that's as automatic as you get. I'm loving Alec Burks. I love what we signed him for, because no matter what the situation is, he will deliver for you, and he's consistent in how he delivers for you. And he's just going in there and doing his job, which I absolutely love. Reminds me of Taj Gibson too, just going in there, doing your job. IQ, we're going to see the struggles with back and forth, but he's really hit his stride now, which is great, unlike the start of the season. And then Derrick Rose, he's the unofficial captain behind Randall in my eyes. So it's awesome to see this bench unit come together.
Love it.
All right, good night.
And that's all, folks.
Oh man, that's great. No, I agree. There was one play tonight where there was a breakdown defensively, and one of the Indiana Pacers were able to drive to the bucket, and no one came to play help defense. And that was at a critical point in the game where it was close, and the teams were kind of going back and forth. And that little play felt disheartening to me, because I'm like, to me, the Knicks, at least what they showed us last season, represented a return to that grit, to that defensive form that they're so well known for, or at least like their reputation is. And tonight, that play was like, oh man, there's something about seeing that and not feeling, not being as confident in that grit nature of our defense. That's kind of disheartening. I think the Knicks aren't the Knicks unless that's a big part of the Knicks aren't the Knicks unless that's a big part of our identity.
Bro, did you?
I don't know if we're too small at the guards position, but something's got to give defensively, because I think that is the thing that's going to unlock us offensively. Like once we get stops and start running the break and get Julius some easy baskets, and it's all about seeing the ball go through the hoop and building confidence and building easy leads. And that doesn't happen unless you're kind of stopping them on one end, disheartening them defensively, and running up the court. So to me, I mean, the Knicks are still a very likable team, and they've shown flashes of being very dangerous offensively. If they could just return to that defensive form, and they might need a new guy. They might need some guys that can play perimeter defense that stop that penetration.
We have those guys.
Let me ask you a question, though.
They're just not playing.
Did you ever think you would be saying that about a Thibodeau team?
But you think they're the answer, like for?
I think so, in part. And you got to give him a chance too. Like McBride, there's nothing in his game that's gonna, like, he's not gonna all of a sudden just be mismatched out of nowhere. Like, this kid hustles on defense, and that's awesome to see. And he, again, reminds me of the Marcus Smart comparisons, just in size and stature and how he just gets after it. And then you got a guy like Grimes, who he's a shooter. Like, you're not going to forget how to shoot all of a sudden. Teams might play you defensively. You might have these struggles. But then what he brings on the defensive end, you got to give these guys a chance. Give them an opportunity. There is no wing or guard anchor on defense as I see it right now. RJ Barrett comes close to that, just based on his level of improvement from last year to this year. But it can't just be Mitchell Robinson, Taj Gibson, and Nerlens Noel. Like, those are our 3 best defenders all playing the same position.
Right.
That's problematic for the Knicks,
and all with some injuries that they've been dealing with early on in the season.
I'll tell
Yeah,
you
I mean,
this, Pete. I think
yeah,
they're
please.
more of the solution than they would be part of the problem. I find it very hard to believe that McBride or Grimes would play worse defense than Kemba and Fournier. It's just
Do you
not
think
going to
that this
happen.
could potentially be something that Tibbs sees in practice where they might be offensive liabilities? Yeah, these guys
No.
can play
Could be.
defense.
No, I
But
think
I-
Tibbs is just stuck in his ways. We saw it last season with IQ. The fan base was dying for IQ for so long. You know, we were chanting his name. We want IQ. You know, the Garden was going nuts, and he just wouldn't play him. And then eventually, when he did, I mean, the kid showed up and performed, and he was a huge part in our success last year.
I'd love to see him
that
get
seems
minutes.
like a very regular season type move right now. Like, I don't know, like, are we really relying on these guys to push us through to like the playoffs? Is this like
Didn't
the next
IQ?
step? Well, I mean,
Didn't he?
But we also played incredible defense
Right.
last year.
and also
Incredible
this year
defense.
IQ wasn't producing. He had enough minutes at the start of the season. He just wasn't producing right.
Well,
He
he
was
just hit his
off-
stride. It's 16
Exactly.
games in.
So then that's
It's
what I'm saying.
10:56.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now he's having his like playing time, so that's correlated. But I mean, like if we're putting in Grimes and Sims at this point and now relying on them, I don't know. That seems like a very regular season perspective. That doesn't seem like a long-term playoff solution. Like, yeah,
Well,
these
you don't
guys
know
might
what
play
you have
defense.
until
true.
like you let these guys rock.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen flashes and glimpses. I mean, I've raved about Sims. I think he's fundamentally sound. I think he's an athletic dude. But why is he not being put in the game? I'd like to think probably Tibbs knows better than me.
Well, there's some
But-
bigs that, when healthy, that are better than him. Like, can you honestly tell me
Well, yeah.
that Fournier is better than Grimes defensively? There's no way.
No.
Could he provide some of the same things? Yeah, offensively, sure. Shooting wise, is he as good off the dribble? Probably not. But can he hit down a couple of shots? I remember a couple games ago, Grimes had a few big shots down the stretch.
Yeah.
The thing is, for the foreseeable future, I don't see these guys ending up in the starting lineup. So whatever they can do for us, which might be a lot, it's not going to help the starting lineup. They still got to figure out their issues kind of independently. And then if those guys can be an additional, the thing is they have to prove themselves with minutes off the bench. And then if they do, then Tibbs might get some ideas as to how to integrate them with some of the starters in some plays or certain situations or certain matchups. Like the NBA is all about matchups. So one night Grimes might be perfect for a certain matchup, and the next night maybe not so much. And you got to be adaptable like that. So
I would
I'm
love
with you
that.
guys. I'd love to, from a data gathering perspective, these guys get some minutes so we could see what's going on, at least from a fan perspective. But
He has to play them.
we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. It's on
Yeah,
Tibbs,
well,
man. He's
well,
stubborn.
I'll give him a call.
The interesting thing about this game is Kemba played 20 minutes, Fournier played 24. Like, their minutes aren't going to get much less than that.
No.
And so whatever he did with the bench this time around is about as good as it could get in terms of like really trying to have a solution for that starting lineup if you're not changing it.
They're not my
Now,
question mark though. For me, it's Randall and sometimes Barrett. I think maybe even resting them, they could potentially be more efficient.
RJ Barrett was 4 for 13. Like, I'm not his first half woes or something different and not connected, I think, to the starting lineup. He
Over the past few games too.
He's streaky, man. He's streaky, and again, he's like 20. He can't even drink legally in the U.S. yet. Like, my guy will find his
have a stress
groove.
relief.
No, he'll be fine. But I think one last point I'll just make on this game is it was a great summation of like the Knicks season kind of just captured in one game where we had horrible Swiss cheese defense throughout. We we had some flashes of like, Kemba he started off hot and like that was good for a little while. We were close and then we got down 12 points in the third and had a horrific third, but then all of a sudden we start hitting these threes thanks to Emmanuel quickly in the fourth quarter, and he hit 3 or 4 in a row in the fourth. 3. And then Burks had a big one. Like that was our live and die by the 3 moment. And as soon as that happened, we jumped out to 5-7 points. RJ had that big bucket, and then we had enough energy to make a stop on defense. That's been our entire season. Every single struggle and solution we've had epitomized in one single game was tonight.
How many minutes did you say Kemba played tonight?
20.
20.
He's 8 for 11.
He's 8 for 11, right? My man had 16 points. I believe he started off the first quarter with the first 8 points.
Something
right?
like that, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get much more efficient than that from your starting point guard, and to still be negative 15 in the plus minus. I mean, that's a credit to how bad he is defensively. I mean, the dude was freaking 8 for 11. 16 points, started off the game with 8 straight. And let's go back to the Hornets game, right? My man had 26 points in 30 minutes, negative 23.
Yep.
Like,
how? What do those two games have in common, though? Like
him
what Far mentioned
hot
earlier. Well, that and also low assists, right? I mean, he's just trying to produce his own shots. I don't think he's focused on distribution as much, maybe defense as much, but he's one of those guys that when he's on, right? And he's going to be another one of those streaky dudes, right?
Yeah,
so
I never expected him to be, high in assists.
Consistent. Yeah. We never got him for that reason, but it's like it's difficult. You realize that, right? When you're looking for a point guard and you're getting, an all-star caliber point guard, you're like, oh crap, that's kind of a big thing to miss in that column because you're gonna have to make that up through other ways, right? And if it's not your point guard, at least your 2 guard, your 3 guard, right? Or at least you have a system that moves the ball around. And then when we saw that this year, when the ball did move around, that's when we saw success. We saw kind of like the Golden State Warriors and not the Houston Rockets, right? We saw even distribution. Right. A lot of dudes were in 10+ points, right? And it was kind of like a strength in numbers type of thing. Whereas now it's kind of like what P was alluding to, more of like a Houston game where it's defense is trash, but when our threes go, they go. So.
No, for sure.
Some interesting things. I was just doing some math in the background here, just doing my homework. No, I'm kidding. And I took a look at the starters they played about 126, 130 minutes, and then the bench played about 100 minutes total. So, roughly the starters played 20% more time this game than the bench. Yet they both had equal assists and rebounds. So in less time, say the bench moves the ball more and they rebound about the same, but in the same amount of time. But what's interesting, 3 free throw attempts from the starters versus 7 in that time. I mean, totally those numbers are out of control and very low to begin with. But the entire starting lineup had 3 free throw attempts that game. And the bench had more than double, which is very, very interesting. And kind of like harkens back to that earlier point about, our offense being live by the 3, die by the 3, and not really moving it and making interior plays and making contact and stuff like that. But very interesting to see that disparity, at least from a numbers perspective from tonight's game.
It's glaring, and I don't think we're getting into like let's compare the starters to the bench players, but that's one stat. You got 3 free throw attempts all game from your starting 5. You're not going to win a whole lot of games. Again, I'll chalk that up to it's still 12 games into season, 15, 16 games into season. Once we get to that 25, 30 mark and we still see glaring issues like this, I never want to see 3 free throw attempts from our starting 5 ever again for the rest of the season. I hope Thibodeau is in the locker room right now telling them that this is unacceptable. This is not how you play winning basketball in the NBA. And then on top of that, the bench outshined you on that front. It's not a great look.
Yeah.
It's a good call out.
At least they were 1 of 3, so that's good.
They were 1 of 3. That's even worse.
Terrible.
Why is that? Are we not as aggressive?
Terrible.
Are we not as aggressive? Like, what's the reason for that?
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of ball movement, I think, in that within the starters. And when you don't have ball movement, defense is just going to play you straight up. And they could play decent defense. And you're not going to get a whole lot of calls in today's NBA, which is amazing to see, by the way.
Yeah,
but it's also
oh my god,
the NBA refs.
Physical plays.
Shout out to the NBA refs. Never thought I'd be saying that.
They missed a couple of calls on Kimba though. He got
They did.
Thank you. And the fact they gave him a technical after, like, come on, that's just a slap in the face. Like, get the.
He kind of deserved that technical, man. He was yelling straight at the ref and like
it was called for.
Yeah,
but I'll look at the replay again, but I'm not going to complain as much if we're getting similar calls. And when you play that brand of basketball, especially at the Garden, especially during playoff time, like that's what I have in mind. And
well, you tell me who on the team can break down a defense. Who can get to the basket and get goals?
Rose and Kemba.
Yeah, and that's about it. You know
That's
what I mean?
it.
So like,
and that's it.
so when you look, how many free throws did D Rose shoot? 0, and you have 0 for Kemba. You know, so
RJ
I think something's wrong there.
RJ can do some work. Seen flashes of it at least a little.
Flashes, yeah. We're talking
Flashes.
like you need a bucket at the basket. Who you put in the whose hands is the ball going into? I'd feel comfortable
Quickly.
with
Coach.
well, again, not a 3-pointer. Like, you're down by 1 and you kind of just need that easy shot or a layup or something. It's Kemba and Rose, but probably Rose before Kemba in our eyes.
Yeah, he's proven.
Okay.
All right. Well, this was a fun powwow, guys.
Time to say
quick.
ciao, ciao.
So we have the Orlando Magic coming up next on Wednesday, and it's the second of 3 home games. This was a must-win in my eyes, just for morale, because you don't want to see the Orlando Magic again after they slapped you up last time, and you're back at home. The crowd is going to be rowdy.
Made it sound so disrespectful. Slap.
What do you think are some keys to victory for the Knicks to beat the Magic at home?
Defense and shooting.
Defense and the shooting. Bro,
it boils down to defensive shooting.
They're taking good shots. They're taking, honestly, the IQ is there. They just have to go down. Again, veterans like Fournier, it's gonna go down. We're gonna see Randall, hopefully by not being so tired, playing that many minutes, kind of slow it down. To Pete's point earlier, he's trying to do a lot. Sometimes we don't even need you to do that much. We have a very talented roster, and we have depth, most importantly.
I think with a team like Orlando, you got to test out these young guys. I think that's where you want to test them out. You don't want to test them out against Philly and Boston and Brooklyn and that. Like, test them out now, and I hope we see that. But I stand by it. I think ball movement is one other thing I'll add. Once the ball is moving, the Knicks are very, very good and very, very effective. Unless we see that ball movement, I think we're gonna have more of the same. But I think the Knicks got this.
Yeah,
they're gonna treat this like a big game.
I'd say we have to win this one. We got to get a couple of games under our belt to get that confidence going
especially
up,
at home.
and especially at home. Yeah, and like Far said, right, the Magic are one of those teams where a win won't really mean much necessarily, right, on the board, but it'll mean a lot in the locker room. And I think obviously defense, obviously offense, that's okay, but we just can't play their game, right? We can't go in trying to work around Cole Anthony, trying to work around those guys. We have to stick to our game plan, stick to our script, because I feel like when we, focus on what we need to do in the task at hand, right, what's on the whiteboard before the game in the locker room, that's when we get those W's. Whenever we try to run with their pace and, let their rhythm impact our momentum and try to play their game, that's when, we have those second half, disasters, or, we aren't able to kind of get our points up in the first half. So that's a must win, must for a win.
Pete,
bring us home.
All right.
Save the best for last.
So that Orlando game is on the road?
No, it's at home.
At home.
The second of 3 home games.
So they're going to come to play the Mecca.
Brooklyn fan?
I was testing you guys.
Well,
He's a Kyrie
watch MadGood
fan.
Nick show sometime, bro.
I was researching
Follow the Twitter,
stats.
Follow us on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, this
Subscribe now.
I agree. The Pacers win tonight was a must win, because losing 4 in a row at home would have been a bad look and probably a morale destroyer.
Yep.
I don't know. To me, it's we don't have to win every game. I just like to see progress and improvement, game over game. I'd like to see RJ Barrett come back to us after that nice stint of scoring 20+ points. 5 or 6. He was doing really well. I like to see that come back. I'd like to see our offense flow. And just we can't fix everything overnight. I keep kind of reminding myself last season we started 11-15. So that kind of keeps me going. But I do want to see some of these. Night. That's right. I don't have
to. That was overachieving at that time.
Facts.
Oh, correct. Yeah. And who would have thought? We were all surprised. Wow, we ended up 4th. We were 4th for a while, but we thought that was like the early season. The standings are all messed up because the season just started and too small a sample size. But then we just kept staying at that 4th position. It was like, wow, this is awesome. So I hope to see that again this season. But that Orlando game, I'm going to be looking out just for some of these like key things that we discussed tonight. I want to see Randall play more in the flow of the offense. I'd like to see better transition defense, more fast breaks, and just chipping away at these flaws that the Knicks have right now. Because underneath those flaws, I think is a very talented and deep team that could be very fun to watch in the postseason. So that's what I'm going to be looking out for. I think they get the win. I think they carry this win and play well against Orlando.
Yeah, I hope I don't see Morale the Destroyer. You made that shit sound like a Marvel comic book.
Morale the Destroyer.
But I don't know who win.
You don't have what
Or like a metal song.
metal destroyer.
Right.
Yo, Pete,
It's
real
like a
quick
band.
before we
You're not that guy, Chief. You're not that guy.
That ain't it,
before we
Chief.
send you to the moon, Pete. Oh, you're
That's
not
not
Pete.
Pete.
You look a lot like him. But you're
I
not
am Pete for today.
I like that hat you got on, man. Where'd you get that
Who,
from?
me?
No, not you.
Yes, the guy on the screen right now. I like that hat. Where'd you get the hat from?
From New York.
From our good friend
Oh,
Quincy
plug.
Moore at
What a
New York or Nowhere.
Plug.
I love it. No leader, baby.
Yo, hell yeah, Knicks.
They just dropped a new
Shout out to Quincy Moore.
fire. I wanted to pull it up, but I'll save it for next time. But it's dope. So go check it out. Nolita, New York or Nowhere.
Quincy Moore.
Any last thoughts, guys, or we can bring it home?
I will. I don't think if at the start of this game you told me that 3 out of the 4 quarters the Knicks would score 16, 21, and 23 and still win this
Jesus
game,
Christ.
I would not believe you.
Yeah,
But
facts.
It was a throwback 90s game.
we'll pull the positives where we can. Yeah, throwback indeed.
Yeah, throwback.
done.
Knicks Eastern Conference, Western Pacers, Eastern Conference, Knicks Pacers.
Whether you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning.
Agreed.
A la Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy.
And Vin Diesel.
I live my life one terrible third quarter at a time.
Dwayne
Oh
Johnson
my
needs to
God,
fulfill
third
his
quarters are
destiny
killer.
and come film Fast 10. That's
All right,
That's
guys. So
100%
next
of the
time
shots you
on
don't
next time, tune in to Morale the Destroyer on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m.
It's 4 a.m. infomercial time.
It's on what is that?
CW11.
What was that like Cartoon Network? The weird after hours, the
Adult
weird
Swim.
stuff, Adult Swim.
Adult
yeah.
Swim,
Adult Swim.
All right, now we can drop the Knicks act. Let's get to the comedy routine, y'all.
After hours with.
right.
After hours, Adult Swim, baby. Space Ghost.
All right, now guys, what do you guys really think? Oh my God, they're terrible now.
All right, fine. Bring us home.
Oh, well, like, comment,
Oh, that's
subscribe. You know the deal here. We're gonna start doing this a little bit more often. So let us know what you think. Do you like our regular shows, our live shows? We're here to give you all the variety and then some. So tune in to the next game. We're gonna be live right after. Love y'all.
Later, guys.
Peace.
Ciao.
Go
And,
Knicks.
See you guys later.
I won't have technical difficulties next time. Much better.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Speak for yourself.
Did we stop?